What's up, family? Welcome back to the Stop Sinking Show, where we go from struggle to flow. I have this open question that you can ponder on with me, and are welcome to reach out to me with your thoughts, because I am not sure what the right answer is here. But it is a question that I struggle with, that comes across my life all the time because I have a forgiving nature. The question is, how many times does a person deserve your forgiveness? How many chances should a person get? And to complicate it even more, does that change over time? What if you haven't seen or talked to the person in 5 years? Do you give them any benefit of the doubt from the time that has passed in hopes that they did some growing? Now, for the most part, when it comes to friends or acquaintances, people that you meet in life, I think the answer is easier, because it's much easier to cut people off who are not joined to you in some way. This gets tricky when it comes to family, your own siblings, your parents, and other relatives. If you cannot totally disconnect your entire life from them, even if you do in the short term, that doesn't mean they won't resurface in 5 years. So it becomes a little trickier to cut them off. Still, it is possible to do so. It's actually easier to cut people off. Really easy. It's easier to cut them off than to not cut them off. It's easier to kill than it is not to. The harder thing is coexisting somehow, understanding somehow. Whether you should or should not is a whole another question. Maybe we should just be as cutthroat with the transgressions of our families. But what if they need you? What if you need them? At some later date or a later stage in life, how much of your past issues, how much of it with them should continue to rule your current interactions? What ratio, what percentage should continue to be something you consider? And this is where the idea of forgiveness comes in. Now, I do believe in forgiving and not forgetting, because the entire point of a memory of a mistake or a learned experience is so you don't go down the same path again. A lot of times our brain is anxious or worried because we haven't given it the comfort that we will not put it back in harm's way like the way that we did in the past. So the way to not be anxious and the way to let go of some trauma and some worry about something, some hurt about something, is to let your brain get the comfort from you, the trust from you, that you will not put it through the same paces again, the same issues again. So it's actually important to remember and not forget entirely. But forgiveness is something that we do for ourselves. It's something for the heart. We are who benefit mostly from the grudge that we let go of, so it no longer weighs us down in our spirit. And even though you still remember, though you have forgiven, that forgiveness does soften you up to the person's energy again. And it's possible, even while being careful, to let that person in again and be hurt and disappointed by them again. I tend to be forgiving to a fault because I have been quick to do the opposite and cut people off really fast in my past. It's really easy to do so. We walk around with the scissors. It doesn't take much effort for us to lead with our ego and protect ourselves and cut people off. If I wanted to speak from my ego, I can easily say I don't need anyone. From that energy, there's no one getting in. Let alone the person who hurt me in the past. They have no chance. Forgiveness is a self-service. It opens you up to the humanity in people. When you forgive, you are allowing additional perspective to flow in that lets you see yourself in the other person's mistakes and allow you to forgive them because you see yourself in them. The failure to do this is where most issues happen in our relationships, because when someone makes a mistake, we immediately fault their character. And when we make the same mistakes, we attribute our own mistakes to circumstance. We dare not point a finger at our own characters. But if you don't lead from your ego, you can see how another person is the same as you in many ways. How they can be under the same circumstances. How they are just as human as you. And then how you could also transgress the same way. Now, the problem becomes when you see yourself open up like this and allow yourself to forgive and grow over time, you then also assume that the possibility of growth is accessible to everyone else also. Because the last thing I would like to do, or think is productive to do, is to box someone else into the ideas that I have of them, or the experiences I had with them from years ago. The last thing I want to do is to box them into that. And it's much healthier to assume that if you can grow, then the other person probably did some growing too. And obviously that's not a guarantee. But going back into any interaction with a person who has hurt you or done you wrong in the past, it cannot happen without at least giving them some benefit of the doubt, or at least the same benefit of the doubt that you give yourself, or at least allow them some grace that they may have also done some growing in the time that you have. And my question is it appropriate now to give this person another chance? Because if you do credit them with assuming that they have grown and you open yourself up to them, knowing that growth isn't guaranteed, the question is important. Because what if the next chance you give them shows you that they indeed are still in the same pattern you knew them to be, that they didn't grow? Again, I would hate to box someone into that. And I think the highest of people is what allows the highest parts of them to come up. But if they disappoint you again, given the chance you gave them, isn't it still a bit now of your fault that you gave them the grace? You either give them too much grace or not enough grace, and either one of those is an issue. And then what if you are left to feel that it would have been better to not have forgiven them? Or to assume instead that they are stuck in their old ways? Just start with that in your mind and just assume that they haven't grown. Again, not the healthiest. But now you're blaming yourself because they did the same thing to you again. Even though that now gives them zero chance to ever break out of their old ways when you box them in. And I hate the idea of speaking that over someone. And I don't think anyone would appreciate being given the energy of, you wouldn't appreciate if I gave you this energy and I said, oh, I know how you are. You know how you get. With all the years of experience that you have with someone, it's really easy to do that to someone. But if you yourself have grown and changed, is it too much of a stretch to think that they might have also? And then isn't that then your fault if they disappoint you again in the same ways that you knew them to because they didn't take the opportunities to grow? For me, I always say, anyone that knows me should get to know me again, for I am changed every day. Because you are under no obligation to be the person you were even 5 minutes ago. And having witnessed extreme changes in myself throughout my entire life, and I'm rigid in some ways and same in some ways as well, it's really easy then for me to extend that empathy to someone in hopes that they too have changed day to day. And it often gets me into trouble because I fail to protect myself from the same hurts that I have already been through in the past. Even though I haven't forgotten and can still recognize the pattern of behavior when it shows up again, the forgiveness I extend them opens me up to be hurt the same way if the person hasn't actually done the work to grow. And then I am left with no option but to blame myself and feel bad about the fact that I'm actually not good at protecting myself despite knowing better. I come across this often because the last thing I want to do is reach the end of my life as a hardened individual who went around and learned his lessons and stiffened up in those places and continued on from there. I think that would lead to me living less and connecting less and maybe becoming cynical altogether. And I come across this with a few characters in my family that tend to resurface no matter how much distance I try to keep over the years. And I'm always left asking, every half decade or so, is this finally the chance I'm giving them where they either don't disappoint or that I finally learn my lesson? I really don't know what the right answer is here. My ego knows the answer. The highest version of me continues to wrestle with this. How fortified do I need to be in my forgiveness? How guarded? How protected? And what does it really protect me from? Hurt? I can hurt forever. I can hurt without measure. But is that ethical? To myself, to my own heart? How many chances does a person deserve in my life, in my heart, before even my spirit is sacrificed? I love you, family. Stay true always. I'll see you on the next show.